The vast dome of the arena on the world called Athelion shimmered under twin suns. It was a place built to test skill, guts, and pride. Warriors from many species came to compete there, but no challenge was more famous than the annual Trial of Wagers. It was a contest where rival champions dared each other with bold bets, and those who lost had to face humiliations or duties chosen by the victor. No one had ever refused. Their honor would never allow it. Among the crowd that day stood a single human named Ray. He had come with a diplomatic group, but wandered toward the arena out of curiosity. His dark jacket looked plain compared to the shining armor of the alien spectators. He had no intention to compete. He only wanted to observe the strange traditions of this world. But fate had its own plans. On the highest platform stood Princess Lyra, heir to the throne of Athelion. She was graceful, sharp-eyed, and known across the stars for unmatched skill in the sport of aerial maneuver trials. Her people possessed wings of luminous membranes that allowed swift movement through the air. Lyra trained since childhood to master the art. She won every year. She never backed down from any wager. Her pride was legendary. When she arrived, a roar rose from the crowd. She raised her hand, and her voice carried across the arena. She challenged anyone brave enough to face her in the Trial of Wagers. Ray stood near the sign-up panel. He had no intention to join, yet an alien merchant bumped him from behind, and his hand accidentally hit the glowing panel. A flash of light followed. The crowd gasped. The panel announced his entry with a loud echo. The human was now a challenger. Lyra looked toward him in disbelief. She narrowed her eyes, expecting him to withdraw. Instead, Ray lifted both hands in confusion. He tried to explain, but the arena systems locked him in. Once the panel selected a challenger, the trial could not be avoided. Ray sighed and rubbed his forehead. He knew he was in trouble, but he decided to face it with the dignity expected from a representative of Earth. Princess Lyra, amused by his misfortune, smirked and declared a wager. If she lost, she would swear a royal duty to the challenger for one full season. If he lost, the challenger must accept whatever duty she assigned. The crowd cheered with excitement. Such a bet from the princess was rare, and bold Ray had no idea what kind of duty she would impose. He had no wings. He had no training. But he nodded. It was the only way forward. The trial began. The arena shifted into an obstacle field suspended in mid-air. Colorful rings floated in complex patterns. Competitors had to pass through them in a set order, gathering light tokens along the way. Speed and accuracy decided the victor. Lyra soared into the air with effortless grace. Her wings shimmered like silver curtains under the twin suns. She flew through 3 rings before Ray even reached the starting platform. Ray knew he could not replicate her flight. Humans were ground-bound, but the arena offered hover belts for wingless competitors. Ray strapped one on. It hummed softly. With a deep breath, he rose slowly into the air. Wobbling at first, the crowd laughed. Lyra glanced back and felt victory was already hers. She looped through another ring and grabbed a light token that drifted like a sparkling sphere. Her confidence soared with her body. Ray pressed buttons on his belt and studied the path ahead. He realized he did not need to beat her in elegance. He just needed to complete the course. The tokens responded to proximity, not grace. He sped toward the nearest ring. The belt jerked, and he almost flipped. But he stabilized and passed through with a shaky glide. The first token pulsed in his hand. He kept going. Lyra completed ring after ring. She was faster. She was more skilled. Everyone expected her victory. But near the final stretch, a burst of wind from the arena vents destabilized her flight. It was a rare atmospheric glitch. She banked hard to recover, but the sudden twist made her miss a ring. She had to loop back. Ray was far behind, but moving steadily. He focused on one ring at a time. He ignored the crowd. He ignored the princess. He ignored the shimmering heights below him. He cared only about finishing. Lyra returned to the mist ring, but the delay cost her precious time. She pushed harder. She soared with all her strength. She raced to the final token. Ray drifted into the last ring moments after her. But she overshot the angle in her rush and fumbled the token. It bounced away and floated just out of reach. She lunged to grab it, but her wing brushed a support beam. Slowing her, Ray floated toward the fallen token. He reached out. His fingers brushed it first. The arena boomed with the victory signal. The human had won. Shock fell across the crowd. Lyra froze in mid-air, disbelief thick in her chest. She landed with tight lips and lowered wings. No one had ever beaten her. She had mocked the idea of losing. But the rules were absolute. She must face the punishment she herself declared. The royal court assembled later in the palace hall. Ray stood among towering pillars carved with ancient symbols. Alien nobles watched him with curiosity. In the center, Princess Lyra stood in formal robes. Her mother, Queen Althea, presided over the gathering. She held a ceremonial staff and spoke with dignified calm. She questioned her daughter. The bet was clear. If Lyra lost, she must accept a duty to the challenger for one full season. But the nobles murmured that such a rule could place the royal family in an unusual position, especially since the challenger was not a citizen of Athelion. Lyra took a deep breath. She stepped forward and spoke with firm resolve. She declared the duty she had selected. She would wed the human. Gasps erupted across the hall. Ray nearly choked in surprise. He had expected guard duty or labor of some kind. Marriage was far beyond what he imagined. But the rules of the trial were steeped in tradition. Wagers involving vows were rare, but valid. Queen Althea studied both of them with steady eyes. She asked if Ray understood the weight of this choice. Ray felt overwhelmed, but he saw no path that allowed dishonor. He accepted with a respectful nod. He had no desire to insult their customs. The queen announced the ruling. A formal union would be arranged. It would last until the season ended. It would be a symbolic bond representing honor, duty, and cooperation between their species. They would not be forced into anything beyond tradition. The marriage would serve as a bridge of peace. Ray agreed. Lyra agreed. But inside, Lyra felt a storm. She lost her pride. She lost her bet. And now she had to wed a human who barely understood her culture. Her wings drooped as she left the hall. Ray followed two attendants as they guided him to a guest chamber. He felt the weight of everything. He wondered how he, a simple representative, ended up in a royal bond with an alien princess. He leaned against a pillar, trying to breathe slowly. Lyra approached him later. She stood tall, but her eyes showed unease. She thanked him for accepting the outcome with dignity. She admitted she had set the wager, expecting an easy win. She spoke calmly, yet her voice carried frustration with herself. Ray offered an apology. He explained he never intended to humiliate her. He only tried to finish the course safely. She nodded and said she respected his honesty. Though she struggled with the result, she acknowledged his courage. For a moment, silence rested between them like a neutral bridge. The ceremony took place the next day. Alien musicians played crystalline instruments that rang like soft chimes. Lyra wore radiant ceremonial robes lined with wing patterns. Ray wore a formal cloak provided by the palace. Both stood under the light of the twin suns as the queen spoke the union rites. The bond was symbolic, but to the people of Athelion, it carried honor and meaning. After the ceremony, Lyra and Ray walked through the palace gardens. Flowers glowed with bioluminescent hues. Streams flowed with shimmering minerals. Lyra explained the significance of each plant. Ray listened with genuine curiosity. She found his patience surprising. She expected him to be nervous or overwhelmed, but he was calm and respectful. In time, she began to see that he carried a quiet strength. He lacked wings, yet he soared in a different way. He did not seek glory. He did not boast. He approached challenges with steady intention. Ray began training with her guards to understand the customs of Ethelian. Lyra watched from a balcony. She noticed how he moved. He was not graceful like her people, but he adapted quickly. He learned how to balance, how to use local tools, and how to navigate the open platforms of the palace. One afternoon, Lyra invited him to the training fields. She wanted to understand how he had managed to complete the trial. Ray demonstrated with a borrowed hover belt. His movements were still clumsy, but he explained his method. He looked for patterns in the floating rings. He memorized the timing of their movements. He relied on calculation instead of improvisation. Lyra realized humans thought differently. Their strength was not in natural ability, but in problem solving. Days passed, and the bond between them slowly shifted. Lyra found herself appreciating the human more than she expected. His calm nature helped ease her frustration about the wager. He treated her with respect despite the strange circumstances. He asked questions about her culture, not out of obligation, but out of real interest. She, in turn, taught him about her world. She guided him through the market districts. She showed him ancient murals. She took him to the edge of the floating cliffs where the winds carried the echoes of the past. Ray told her stories of Earth. He described oceans, forests, and cities full of life. Lyra listened with fascination. She imagined what it must feel like to